another 1-hour Newsmaker show. Today, in the last segment, we had on Dr. OMara, the St. James anesthesiologist. In this segment, it's State Senator Tom OMara. Always good to talk to you, Senator.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Senator OMara, well, let's start out with COVID-19, which was what we talked about in the last segment with Dr. OMara. I'm guessing your office is getting flooded with calls, with people saying, is there anything you can do for me? I'm unemployed now, or I was working in a small business, or I own a small business. What kind of things is your office telling those sorts of calls, Senator?
Well, we've been fielding calls nonstop for the past month, frankly. All of my staff is working remotely from home, but with full access to all of our computer capabilities. Our emails, our phone system is all remotely accessible. So everybody's working full-time with all these constituent issues that are coming in. And, we just try to make sure we direct them to the right resource at the state who has the final decision-making on a lot of these. There were a lot of manufacturers looking to confirm that they could continue operations because they were providing essential services to certain sectors of the economy that were deemed essential by the administration. So there were a lot of that going on, a lot of concerns just from individuals overall, the whole situation. A lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and we're just doing our best to help these people find the right information. It's difficult when you're not able to really give them a direct answer because some of the things are vague, and you don't want to provide incorrect information. So we try to make sure we get them to the source, either the Department of Health or the Empire State Development Agency, to make sure that we're getting correct information and not making a judgment call on something that somebody else may interpret differently.
Yes, we've had everyone from Sean Hogan from the Hornell IDA to Mayor Buckley on, and others, Assemblywoman Marjorie Burns, talking about all this. So you send them to the state health website, you send them to the Empire State Development Corporation website. The news came out last week from Congressman Tom Reed that the federal budget or the federal stimulus for the COVID-19 problem had been passed by both houses, the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, and was sent to the president's desk. Wondering, is it still too early? I asked Congressman Tom Reed during the press conference we had Friday afternoon. Is it too early to ask for any breakdowns of, can this business get this? Can this type of business get that? Is that still the case? And the state, I believe, was waiting on the federal government, correct?
Well, we were waiting to see what was going to be in the Phase 3 stimulus package, which has come now. And, we've been through that and looking to see what's going to come. It's a lot of it for small business is going to be going through the Small Business Administration appropriately through their disaster relief mechanisms they have. Usually they're responding to natural disasters. This is somewhat different and certainly much more widespread than any natural disaster we've ever seen. And there are, hundreds of thousands of small businesses trying to get through. And that's the biggest problem right now is for the individuals, the small business owners, to actually be able to get through both on the website and via telephone because the systems are just getting overwhelmed. There is a great deal of relief that is in the Phase 3 package, both for individuals and for businesses, because it's critically important that when we come out of this, we just got a 30-day extension basically yesterday from President Trump on on status quo and things continuing the way they are, that's a huge concern with our economy overall going forward. And it's important that we provided relief to individuals, but it's equally as important that we provide relief to small businesses in particular, because we want to make sure they're able to rebound and be able to provide the jobs that were there before. And many of these businesses may not survive this. So job retention and the ability for these businesses to rehire people is going to be critical as things hopefully start to return to normal after a few more weeks.
Talking to State Senator Tom OMara in this segment of the Newsmaker show. Wanted to ask you a question, Senator OMara. As you know, Governor Andrew Cuomo has been having morning briefings pretty much every day. Yesterday at his Sunday briefing, Governor Cuomo, I guess I would say he had some critical words about U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer regarding Medicaid in New York State. Cuomo seemed to be saying that the U.S. Senate and Senator Schumer were interfering. I don't know if he used that word, but that's basically what Cuomo was saying, that Senator Schumer was interfering with Medicaid in New York State. Wondering, Senator OMara, it seemed kind of complicated. Could you kind of break that down and explain that for us?
Yes, well, it is complicated. I'll do my best because I've been trying to get a grasp of it myself. But in a nutshell, what the governor is complaining about with Senator Schumer seems to be valid. I know when the increase to Medicaid was coming through both Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the federal stimulus package, there were talks about restrictions on how that extra money could be used. First of all, in Phase 2, the federal government said that a state could not pass additional costs onto localities, such as counties here in New York State. And that was great news, because for whatever reason, Governor Cuomo seems bound and determined to go away from the cap on Medicaid expenses we've had to the counties. Without that cap in place and other actions we've taken in the state legislature, the county's Medicaid costs would be twice as much today as it would have been without the actions we had taken. But back to this increase, and it's about $5.2 billion for New York State in the Phase 2 and Phase 3 part of it. In Phase 3, the New York Republican congressional delegation urged Senator McConnell in the Senate to ease up on the restrictive language on the use of those funds. And it's alleged, and both that Senator Schumer rejected the offer by McConnell to make that language change. So some of the restrictions stayed on. Now, I do believe that Governor Cuomo now, even though he's correct in saying that about Schumer, we don't believe he's correct in what the state can do to its Medicaid program, even if they receive the $5.2 billion. Well, it says you can't make the Medicaid program more restrictive. It doesn't say you can't work to make the Medicaid program less expensive. And the governor had put together a month and a half ago, the Medicaid Redesign Team 2 to look at reforming Medicaid in New York State, coming up with cost savings. Now, none of their recommendations were passing the costs onto counties, but there are some overall changes recommended in there that will save money to the Medicaid system as a whole, but not necessarily making it more restrictive for somebody to be eligible for Medicaid. So if the governor walks away from this $5.2 billion and tries to cover it some other way in our budget, which our New York State budget is pending right now, we are returning to Albany today to review budget bills, which which is usually about 9 budget bills in the state budget. This year might be different, but we still have not gotten one of the budget bills in print yet. It's not available for us to review at this point. Some of the points are still being haggled over, but the bulk of it, I believe, is done, over 90% of it. And we should start seeing that language so that we know what's in there and can be better prepared for it when we're going to be forced to start taking up budget bills by the majority in the legislature as early as tomorrow. And we need time to prepare. We need time. This is just not an appropriate way to be dealing with a budget in this critical time that we have.
I want to get back to the budget in just a moment. I did want to ask you a question. And by the way, thank you for your answer on what Governor Cuomo said about Senator Schumer and Medicaid. I know you've been on Medicaid panels at the state level, and thanks for years. And thank you for explaining that, Senator OMara. Question on that statewide quarantine that President Trump was talking about. Governor Cuomo gave the president some pushback. And the president pretty much dropped the idea. I was wondering, do you have a sense of what the president meant when the president talked about a statewide quarantine? Was he talking about everybody in the state being seriously quarantined and not going outside at all? Or was he talking about not allowing New Yorkers to leave New York state borders?
It's up to interpretation because it was very vague when Trump just kind of mentioned it in passing as he was boarding a helicopter to take a trip to Virginia to see the send-off of the USS Comfort. And it startled a lot of people, me included, because he talked about a tri-state quarantine of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, and just kind of threw it out there and said nothing else. Was not helpful for people stress level in that tri-state region, and ultimately he backed off of that. Now, I think it was probably more quarantine about people leaving the area where they are and going to other states, crossing borders, but generally staying in the area where they are so they're not spreading it to another region. We had the same concerns upstate New York as the other states do with individuals from New York crossing the border. Just because we're in the same state doesn't mean we're not a different region. And individuals coming up from downstate, can certainly potentially infect our communities, but also, overwhelm our hospitals upstate if a trend like that were to continue.
Talking to State Senator Tom OMara. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get the senator's thoughts on what he knows about the budget. The senator said earlier that haven't seen a whole lot so far. We'll be back in just a moment.
The Ryan Agencies, your local, independent insurance agencies. The Ryan Agency employs 15 of your friends and neighbors. They live, shop, and support our community. When you buy insurance from the Ryan Agency, you support local families. Contact the Ryan Agencies today, your local source for all things insurance.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
Despite what's going on in the world, Cunningham Starling & Associates is here to help you do your taxes. As of March 23rd, we can't meet you face-to-face, but we are doing phone conference meetings. Whether you go to our website and upload your documents or use our drop-off or fax service, we can do your taxes. Or maybe you want to do an extension and we can help with that too. In the Hornell area, find us on the web at hornelltax.com. That's hornelltax.com, with drop-off times of Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. or 2 to 4 p.m.
Checking in with meteorologist Rob Carolyn, who says next couple days aren't going to be as nice as yesterday was.
No, they certainly are not, Brian. Kind of gloomy. It looks like we've got lots of cloudiness out there thanks to a storm system that's sitting over Lake Huron this morning. Overnight skies were clear, but the cloudiness has filled in, and it looks like it's going to hang around for a couple of days, actually. Not only will we keep the clouds, but we'll keep the breezy conditions. And temperatures are going to be just on either side, 45 today, with some widely scattered showers. It looks like we'll see showers tonight, too. In fact, as the night goes on and we turn colder, some of those showers may start to mix with some wet snow. The overnight lows are going to be down close to 35. Tomorrow, a couple of showers, any wet snow. That should disappear tomorrow morning. Highs will be up around 45. Cloudy, maybe a shower tomorrow night, lows near 35. And we'll stay mostly cloudy right on into Wednesday. It stays cool, highs only around 45. Brian, sunrise this morning was at 6:53, and it'll set tonight at 7:35.
And we're back with State Senator Tom OMara on this 1-hour Newsmaker show today. Senator OMara talked earlier about not having seen budget bills. Senator, do you have a sense of what's in the governor's plans for the budget, though?
Well, I say we haven't seen what's written in the bills. We've certainly heard a lot about what's being talked about. One positive thing is that we haven't really heard talk about taxes being increased. So that remains to be seen on what we do there. I know the state assembly would love to increase taxes, as they always do there. But really what's concerning is in this crisis that we have, and we should really be looking at doing a bare bones budget. Revenues are way down, and they're going to be way down for a while in New York State. Somewhere in the range, it's estimated by the State Division of Budget, from $10 to $15 billion down. But the governor is looking at all these policy issues to try to cram into this budget while there's really little opportunity, little time to review them in full on how they're written in the budget. But time spent in Albany will be limited on debating these issues. We've set up a remote voting possibility for members who may be in a risk category, may be quarantined, so that they can register and check into the legislature online, and certainly pay attention to the proceedings by video. But it's going to be awkward for individuals to participate, and there's been rumors going around that those individuals can only vote yes and not no. Now, that's not accurate. They'll be able to vote yes or no, but the debate will be somewhat stifled for those individuals. I think we're going to have plenty of members that are in Albany. I'm going myself to handle debate on these issues. But, the governor's talking about throwing in there taxpayer finance campaigns still. That one came up yesterday. I thought that was a dead issue. We had passed it last year for the commission to do it. The commission's findings were thrown out in court because that delegation couldn't be given to a commission. But to come back and put it in the budget at $200 million to finance campaigns with taxpayer money is outrageous at this point in time. The governor is still trying to push recreational marijuana in the budget. There's still a lot of debate on both sides of the aisle on whether to do that or not. The governor's pushing a renewable energy siting policy that would bypass local governments, bypass zoning in place by local governments, and virtually ignore any local input on the siting of renewable power projects in New York State. Those are very controversial. Large wind farms, large solar farms really create a blight on our hillsides throughout upstate New York, and the larger they are, the more of a blight they're going to be. The governor is, for some reason, found and determined to get his proposal of gestational surrogacy, where basically you can hire a woman to carry a pregnancy to term to provide your own baby when you can't have one yourself. The governor is looking at a styrofoam ban, a ban on polystyrene, which styrofoam is a form of. And this in this time of certainly crisis that we have and all the takeout food being done, styrofoam being the container of choice by the food industry, and contrary to somewhat popular belief, polystyrene and styrofoam is recyclable. We just don't have the capabilities of that in New York. But there's an opportunity for a new industry in New York to really go after and try to set up a system to recycle this type of waste material. This type of waste material is just going to be substituted with another form of waste that will ultimately go into the landfills. So let's deal with the problem and deal with what I call product stewardship and the recycling of these materials by the industry that puts it into the waste stream to begin with. We just did it with paint a year ago. We've done it with electronic waste years ago and have programs in the state set up to do that. So it can be done rather than just banning a product to do that. There's still discussions in the budget on bail and discovery reform.
Yeah, I was going to ask that if Governor Cuomo gets drafted at the Democratic convention to run for president, would it be in the governor's interest to change the bail reform rules that have just gone in to make the bail rules more like they used to be, a little bit more conservative?
Well, I think nationwide it certainly would. What we did was very extreme, not safe for the public. Just turned our criminal justice system upside down. And, whatever they do, Brian, is going to be minimal. I hope something gets done in that regard. But whatever it gets done, it's going to be window dressing. The Assembly is very satisfied with what they were able to accomplish with bail reform last year, and they're extremely reluctant to back off of that. So I think whatever we see there, unfortunately, is going to be very minimal.
With that, we have to leave it. I want to thank you very much, Senator Tom OMara, for joining us today.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be with you.